Thanks for staying with us on Point. It's day 3 of the Mining Indaba taking place at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. The Indaba is themed Evolution of African Mining, Investing in the Energy Transition, ESG and Economies. Panel discussions are set to continue in an exchange of ideas on the way forward in making the transition to a more carbon-neutral footprint. My colleague Nompumelelo Siziba has been on the ground for us this week and she's standing by to tell us more. A very good afternoon to you, Nompumelelo. Just give us a summary of what's happened today so far.
Thanks very much, Nzinga. Well, there's a lot going on. Obviously, the exhibitions continue, people roaming around looking at the various different technologies that are available, different vehicles that are available to make it easier to move around mines, robots that can do detection in mines where humans can't go, and so on and so forth. Then in the corners here and there are people meeting up and discussing potential deals in terms of mining on the African continent. Speaking to some people off camera, there's a lot of talk about there still being confidence to invest in the African mining industry, just so long as the regulatory framework is correct. Earlier, myself and my colleague were able to go and observe a discussion that was taking place by the Mining Industry Association of Southern Africa. And they were talking about, basically this grouping, it represents 10 different chamber of mines around Africa, which includes South Africa. And what they were saying is that indeed they have embraced the idea of reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2050. But with the proviso, as is always said with this whole just transition story, that communities are not left behind, workers are not left behind. And it's a very tricky area. It's going to be interesting to see how this whole just transition pans out, given the fact that, for example, in South Africa, we have so much abundance of coal. You know, how quickly are we going to shift out of coal? Especially if you look at the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Europe, has been like poo-pooing coal for years now and saying that they're moving away from it. But now with the event or the advent of this particular war, they're actually ordering so much product from South Africa in terms of coal. The difficulty for our coal miners, of course, is that Transnet freight rail is not behaving very well and not managing to carry the coal to the port so that they can export this stuff. Another story whereby South Africa is not able to take advantage of a commodity boom. It's happened before and it's seemingly happening again. Players talking about a real concern about the infrastructure issues here in South Africa, the lack of rail capacity to move stuff to the ports, companies having to now load a whole load of haulage onto the roads, which is not exactly environmentally friendly. But very interesting. There's so many things that are going on here. It's hard to keep track. But the main message that MIASA was giving, that is these group of chamber of mines from Africa, is that they do want to move along with the rest of the world in terms of becoming to be carbon neutral by 2050. But they want to do it at a pace that makes sense for the African continent. Obviously, we know we have big problems, not just in South Africa, right across the African continent in terms of youth unemployment and so on and so forth. And we don't want to be moving out of abundance of supplies of something that actually creates an ecosystem of work and job opportunities unless there's something alternative to go for. A lot of issues around the slowness with which alternative energies are coming on, the renewable energy space, for example. We hear about all these windows, but we don't necessarily hear about the energy coming on stream. So there are a lot of opportunities but challenges, and it's a work in progress. People are talking about those processes, and as the people seek to achieve this just transition and improve on their ESG, their environmental, social and governance, they are obviously looking closely at things like innovation and research. Through those instruments, you'll better be able to find the way of achieving those goals in order to be able to achieve the goals. And so there's a lot of investment going on in research and development. A lot of work in South Africa in terms of partnerships between the government and the Mineral Council of South Africa. Some independent players here say that the government just wants to have its hand in too many things, and therefore that delays a lot of processes in terms of investment. So lots of of different views, lots of different discussions taking place, but there's a great vibe here. There's still a lot going on the third day. Tomorrow is the final day. Maybe it will slow down a little bit, but there's still a real buzz here. Nzinga.
Nompumelelo Siziba giving us an update from the Western Cape there, where she has been for the last few days on the ground, bringing us interviews with miners from across the continent and across the world, telling us what's happening there.